The galaxy stretched wide and calm, filled with glowing stars and quiet trade routes. For centuries the great races lived in peace, sharing markets, building cities, and teaching their young that the age of war was long behind them. They believed they had built a perfect order where fear no longer ruled. The old stories of betrayal and battle became myths, something to frighten children before sleep. The past was buried, and no one wanted to dig it up again. But the past has a way of finding its way back. On a distant archive station, orbiting a forgotten moon, a group of scholars searched through sealed files. The data was so old that even their machines struggled to read it. Layers of dust covered the consoles, and the walls were cracked with age. They expected to find nothing more than broken records, but instead they uncovered something terrifying, a record of a vote, a moment in history the galaxy had hidden from its people. The words glowed on their screens as if alive. Every race, every species had raised its hand, its claw, its tendril, and voted the same. The vote was to enslave humanity. The scholars read in silence, their hearts trembling. The files revealed the truth of the past. Humanity had once been a great ally, a people who fought wars for the galaxy, who stood where others could not. But when the fighting ended and the galaxy no longer needed them, the Council betrayed them. They voted to break them, to use them as slaves, and when Earth resisted, they abandoned it, left it to die. The scholars saw images of a burning planet, fleets turning away as cities crumbled. Promises of help left unanswered. Earth had been erased not by chance, but by choice. One scholar whispered that the Council must know, they must tell the galaxy, but another shook her head in fear. She said the Council had hidden these files for a reason. If the people knew, everything would break. Yet even as they argued, the files spread on their own, the data copied itself, leaking into networks, slipping through security walls like water. Within days, fragments of the truth appeared across the stars. Merchants whispered it in markets. Children repeated it in schools. The peace of the galaxy cracked with one question. What if humanity had survived? The Council tried to deny it, declaring the files false, old tricks made by enemies. But the words were too heavy, too real. Whole systems could not forget the betrayal. Families looked up at the stars with shame and fear, because deep inside they knew the truth. Their ancestors had voted, their ancestors had turned against Earth, and if the humans had survived, then they would not forget. Then it came, a signal, faint at first, like a whisper in the dark. It reached a listening post on the edge of known space. The operators thought it was static, just noise from the void. But when they slowed it down, when they cleaned the pattern, their eyes widened in horror. The signal was human, not old, not broken, but alive. The message was short, clear, and terrifying. It said, "We remember." The operators froze. The sound of the human voice heavy with power. The signal was sent to the capital, and when the Council heard it, panic filled the chamber. Some shouted that it was impossible. Others claimed it was a trick. But none could explain why the energy pattern matched no alien technology. None could explain why the signal was fresh, not centuries old. The words played again and again, "We remember," and each time they echoed, the leaders trembled. Across the galaxy, the message spread faster than the Council could contain it. Smugglers carried recordings. Miners played it underground. Farmers repeated it in fields, and everywhere, people began to whisper the same fear. Humanity had survived, humanity had returned. In the quiet corners of the stars, mothers held their children close. Fathers stood in silence staring at the sky. Soldiers polished their weapons with shaking hands. Everyone knew what the words meant. If humans remembered, then they remembered the betrayal, and no betrayal is forgotten forever. The hook tightened when other signals followed, faint bursts of sound, coded words, broken but sharp. Some said, "We endured," others said, "We are waiting." Each signal sent shivers through entire systems. And though no one had yet seen a human ship, no one had seen a human face, the galaxy felt their presence, like a shadow moving just outside the light. The peace that had lasted centuries was breaking, the truth had returned, the betrayal was no longer buried, and in the hearts of billions, fear grew heavy, for they knew what humanity was. They knew Earth was a death world, and if the Death Worlders had survived, then the galaxy would pay for what it had done. The chamber of the Galactic Council was a living storm of voices, a sea of sound that crashed against the shining walls of crystal and steel. Thousands of leaders filled the tiers, each one representing a different race, their forms so varied that the hall seemed like a gathering of all creation itself. Some leaders hissed with scaled jaws, Others clicked with sharp mandibles. Others shimmered with translucent skin that glowed under the light. All of them had come together. But there was no unity, only fear. The words of the signal burned in every mind, "We remember." The high speaker rose from the central dais, his robes glowing with faint silver threads, his face pale with dread though he tried to appear calm. He raised his long hands and begged for silence. But silence refused to come. Leaders shouted over him, their voices filled with panic. Some demanded war, others demanded surrender. Some swore it was a trick, others whispered the old stories were true. The noise swelled until it seemed the very walls would crack. One warlord with red-scaled skin slammed his fists on his desk, his voice deep and fierce. "This is nothing but lies," he roared. "Humanity is gone. They burned long ago, their signal is a trick meant to divide us, and we are falling for it." His supporters cheered, claws rattling against the stone. But then a frail scholar from a peaceful world rose, her voice quiet but sharp. She reminded them that the energy signature was unique. No alien race carried such a pattern, no pirate could forge it. She whispered the words all feared, "The signal is real, and it is fresh." The council froze at those words, the truth too heavy to deny, because every analysis had shown the same. The signal had not traveled for centuries through the void. It had been sent recently, alive, deliberate, and directed at them. The human voice was not an echo. It was a message, and the message meant one terrible thing: humanity had survived. Panic rippled through the chamber like fire. One aquatic leader cried that fleets must be gathered at once, that defenses must be raised. Another insectoid general clicked angrily that such panic would only draw the humans closer. An avian governor spread her wings wide and shouted that perhaps the humans only wanted peace. But her words were drowned by laughter, bitter and sharp. No one in the chamber believed the humans had come for peace. Not after the betrayal. Not after being abandoned to die. The high speaker finally managed to command silence, his voice amplified to a roar. He reminded them of history. Though his face twisted with shame, he told them the truth they had all tried to bury. The vote had been real. Every race had chosen to enslave humanity. And when Earth resisted, they left it to burn. They erased the records, swore never to speak of it. But now the past had returned to haunt them. The words filled the chamber with a heavy silence, broken only by the whispers of those too shaken to speak loud. And then, as if to mock them, every screen in the chamber flickered to life, every console, every wall. The human message played again, louder this time, "We remember." The sound shook the chamber, and for the first time in centuries, the leaders of the galaxy sat in silence, the voice of Earth filling their hearts with dread. But the message did not stop there. After a long pause, a second line followed, broken but clear, "You will answer." Gasps filled the chamber, fear spreading like a plague. Some leaders collapsed into their seats. Others shouted desperately to shut down the broadcast. But no matter what they tried, the words kept playing, over and over, searing themselves into the minds of every leader. On the lower levels of the chamber, younger representatives whispered among themselves. Many had been raised in peace, told that humans were myths, fairy tales used to scare children. But now their eyes were wide, their skin pale with fear. They asked their elders why humanity had been betrayed, why such cruelty had been done. But the elders gave no answers, their silence heavier than truth. While the council raged in chaos, reports poured in from the border colonies. Patrol fleets were missing. Ships that had checked in hours ago no longer responded. Traders swore they saw shadows in the stars, moving with purpose, moving like fleets. The council tried to dismiss them. But the timing was too sharp, too perfect. The shadows had come with the signal. In secret corners of the council hall, some leaders confessed their fears. They whispered that humanity had not come to conquer, not to enslave, but to judge, that this was not the beginning of a war, but the beginning of punishment. The words "you will answer" replayed in their minds, and none could deny the weight of judgment those words carried. As the session broke into madness, one desperate leader called for peace talks, another called for immediate attack. The chamber nearly fell into violence, and the high speaker, trembling now, lifted his hands once more, his voice breaking. "We face what we created, we face the judgment of Earth." But few listened, because fear had already won. Outside the chamber, in the crowded streets of the capital, people whispered the words, "We remember." The phrase echoed in markets, in schools, in factories, spreading faster than soldiers could silence. And above the capital skies, the stars glimmered strangely, as if shadows moved just beyond sight. watching, waiting. The council had gathered to control the fear, but instead they had fed it, and across the galaxy, one truth began to settle deep into every heart. The humans had returned, and they would not stop until the galaxy answered for its betrayal. On the far edge of the galaxy, away from the shining capitals and the echoing halls of the council, there was a quiet colony built on soft green hills and blue rivers. The people there lived simple lives, farmers, miners, traders. Most of them cared little for politics or ancient history, but even in this peaceful place the words had reached them. The human signal had played across their skies just like everywhere else. We remember. You will answer. Fear had spread through the colony like smoke through grass. Children whispered it to each other. Elders avoided looking up at the stars, and no one slept well at night anymore. In a small stone house on the edge of the village, an old alien named Kale sat on his porch, his back bent with age, his skin rough and faded from long years under the suns. He was known to the children as the storyteller, the one who spoke of things most adults dismissed as fantasy. The young often gathered around him after chores, sitting cross-legged in the dust, begging for tales of the ancient wars. Many of their parents warned them not to listen, saying the old man filled their heads with lies, but the children loved him, and Kale never refused them. When the human signal came, the children rushed to him in fear, their small voices desperate, asking if the stories were true, if the humans were real, if they were monsters who had returned to destroy the galaxy. Kale's old eyes looked heavy with sorrow as he gazed at the sky. He told them softly that the humans were not monsters. No, they were something far more dangerous. They were survivors. The children leaned close, silent, afraid yet eager. Kale began to speak, his voice trembling but steady enough to carry the weight of memory. He told them that when he was young, long before they were born, he had seen humans with his own eyes. He had fought beside them in battles that the council now called myths. He remembered how they stood when others fled, how they laughed in the face of pain, how they carried entire wars on their shoulders. He remembered the way their ships tore through fleets 3 times their size, and the way their soldiers sang even as they marched into fire. The children shivered, unable to imagine such creatures, but Kale did not stop. His voice dropped lower, heavier. He told them the truth no one wanted to speak. The humans had not been destroyed by war. They had been betrayed. He remembered the day the council voted, the day the galaxy turned its back on Earth. He remembered the fleets pulling away, leaving Earth to burn, leaving humans to die. The betrayal had not been hidden then. He had seen it himself, and he swore the humans had looked to the stars with eyes full of rage and sorrow, swearing that if they ever rose again, the galaxy would pay. One of the children, a brave little boy with silver eyes, asked if the humans would forgive, if perhaps they had returned to find peace. Kale shook his head, his old voice hardening. No, he said. Forgiveness was not what they carried memory, and memory never fades, not for a race born on a death world, a race that had endured storms, fire, and hunger since their first breath. He told them that the humans had been silent for centuries not because they were gone, but because they were waiting. As Kale spoke, shadows fell across the village, not from clouds, but from sleek black patrol craft lowering from the skies. The council had sent soldiers to silence him. Their armor gleamed under the suns, their rifles heavy with threat. They marched straight to Kale's house, their voices sharp, accusing him of spreading fear, of feeding lies into the minds of the young. The children clung to him, begging him to stay. But the soldiers dragged him to his feet and bound his hands. Kale did not fight. He only looked up at the sky and whispered, "They are already here," before being shoved into the waiting craft. The ship rose into the sky, vanishing into the clouds, leaving the village in stunned silence. The children cried. The adults shook their heads, telling them to forget, to stay silent. But the children did not forget. That very night, the silver-eyed boy returned to Kale's house with his friends. They searched through the dusty shelves and broken furniture, desperate to find something the old man might have left behind, and at last, hidden beneath a loose stone, they discovered a small device. Glowing faintly, trembling, they pressed it, and Kale's voice filled the room once more. "My children," the recording said, "if you are hearing this, then they have taken me. But remember what I told you. Humanity is not a story. It is truth. They survived, they endured, and they are coming, not for peace, but for judgment. The council will tell you lies. They will try to bury the truth again. But do not believe them. for soon the stars themselves will reveal it. His voice grew weaker, softer. I have seen their eyes, the fire inside them. They will not forgive. They will not forget. They will return. And when they do, the galaxy will answer. The recording ended, leaving the children in silence, their eyes wide, their hearts pounding. They held the device close, and one whispered, "We must tell everyone." Though fear burned in their stomachs, they began to spread the message, first to friends, then to travelers, then to smugglers who carried it across the stars. By the time soldiers discovered the missing device, Kale's words had already slipped beyond their reach. Within weeks, fragments of his voice spread across systems, carried in whispers, played in hidden corners, passed in secret meetings. His warning became a quiet anthem. The people of the galaxy began to realize that the humans were not just shadows, not just rumors. They were real, they were awake, and they were watching. And far away, beyond the reach of the Council's gaze, in the endless dark between stars, black ships drifted in silence, waiting, their hulls scarred with old battles but burning with new strength. Inside them, human eyes stared into the void, patient, cold, and unyielding. The words of Kale's warning already alive in their hearts. We will not forgive, we will not forget, and the galaxy trembled. For the voices of the past had become the voice of the present, and soon, the voice of judgment. The border patrol ship Seraph Dawn glided through the emptiness, its hull painted gold by the twin suns behind it. Inside, the crew moved with routine steps, tired of the same patrol they had done for years. Their duty was simple: scan the edges of space for smugglers, pirates, or drifting debris, never anything more, for the galaxy had been at peace too long. But this night was different. The air felt heavier. The silence outside seemed too thick, as if the stars themselves had drawn closer, watching. The captain, a stern insectoid with sharp mandibles, sat at the command seat. His eyes locked on the wide viewing screen. He pretended calm, but unease coiled in his chest. The words of the human broadcast haunted him, the way they had echoed through his own ship without warning. We remember. You will answer. His crew whispered about it when they thought he was not listening. They checked shadows twice. They jumped at every flicker on the scanners. It was not pirates they feared, not smugglers, but something far older, far darker. Hours into their patrol, the silence broke. A sensor officer raised her head, her 4 eyes wide with alarm. She reported faint signatures on the edge of their scans. The captain ordered magnification. The screen shimmered with static. Then shapes emerged, massive shapes, darker than the void itself, moving with slow precision. The crew froze, their hearts pounding. The shapes had no lights, no banners, no signals, only endless black, blotting out the stars behind them. The captain whispered the words before he realized, warships. But his voice cracked. These were not ordinary warships. They were larger, stronger, older, and their patterns matched records no one had dared mention for centuries. Human warships, the Deathwalder fleets, the ones erased from history. Before he could order a retreat, the ship shuddered, lights flickered, consoles sparked, comms filled with static. The crew scrambled to regain control. But every system failed. The ship was alive one moment and dead the next. Yet no shot had been fired, no missile launched. It was as if the shadows themselves had reached inside their vessel and strangled its heart. And then a voice, low, cold, and heavy, filled their ears, not from speakers, but inside their own minds. You are not ready. The crew screamed, some clutched their heads, others dropped to the floor. The captain shouted for calm. But his own body shook. The voice carried not sound but weight, like the crushing pressure of an ocean. And when it vanished, silence returned, deeper than before. The Seraph Dawn never returned to its station. Its last transmission a broken whisper from the sensor officer. They are here. They are watching, and then nothing. Within days, other patrol ships reported the same. Faint shadows on the edge of scans, systems failing without warning, voices whispering in the dark. Then entire fleets went silent, their signals lost, their ships never seen again. The council called it accidents, malfunctions, pirate ambushes, but no one believed them anymore. The timing was too sharp, the fear too heavy. Smugglers carried recordings of dying comms into black markets, playing the screams of pilots who vanished seconds later. Miners told stories of seeing stars vanish behind moving walls of black. Traders swore entire convoys had disappeared mid-route. Their cargoes later found drifting untouched, their crews gone without trace. each tale more terrifying than the last. In the crowded colonies, people looked to the skies at night, pointing at the places where stars seemed to flicker strangely. Mothers pulled their children indoors. Fathers locked their doors and sharpened old weapons, though they knew they would be useless. Priests whispered prayers in forgotten tongues, begging the void for mercy, but the shadows only grew. One scout vessel, desperate for proof, crept close to the strange signatures, its captain brave or foolish enough to test the truth. The crew whispered to each other as they approached, hearts hammering in their chests. Then their screens lit up, and there it was, a shape so massive it filled the horizon. A warship blacker than the void, its hull scarred by ancient battles, its engines silent but powerful, its size dwarfing anything in the galaxy. The crew sat frozen in awe and terror, their voices trembling. They survived. They survived. For a long moment the ship did not move, did not attack, it only hovered, watching them. And in that silence the scout captain felt something worse than death. He felt judged, as if unseen eyes were weighing him. Then, without warning, the scout vessel's systems died. The screens went dark, the engines fell silent, and the last thing the crew saw before their lights faded was the endless black hull turning slowly toward them. Their final log slipped through the void before the ship vanished. A broken message replayed across pirate channels, the terrified voice of a young crewman. "We found them, the humans. They are here," and then static. The council tried to bury it, tried to erase every trace, but the people had already heard. The galaxy no longer believed in accidents. They knew the truth. The shadows in the void were human fleets, waiting, testing, judging, and each day they grew bolder. Each day more ships vanished. Each day the fear spread deeper. In villages, children whispered the words of the old man Kale. They will return, and the galaxy will answer. In capital streets, riots broke out, demanding the council tell the truth. On frontier worlds, governors begged for protection that never came. And in the silent void, black warships drifted closer, unseen by most, but always watching. The galaxy had lived in peace for centuries, but that peace was built on betrayal, and now the betrayed had returned, not as myths, not as echoes, but as shadows blotting out the stars, and everyone who looked into the night sky felt the same truth pressing down on them. Humanity had survived, and the time of judgment was near. The galaxy could no longer hide from the truth, no matter how loudly the council denied it. No matter how many speeches promised safety, the shadows in the void had grown. Too close, fleets had vanished, patrol ships had fallen silent, and the whispers of humanity's return were now roars across every system. Yet the council tried one last time to silence the fear. They ordered every broadcast tower to be purged, every channel scrubbed, every message of the humans erased from public reach. But the moment they tried, something worse happened. Screens that had gone dark suddenly flickered to life. Speakers meant to be silent burst with static. And then, clear and sharp, the voice returned, not faint as before, not broken, but strong, cold, and deliberate. "You betrayed us once. You will answer now." The words rolled through markets, schools, ships, and palaces, carrying the same weight no matter where they were heard. People froze in place, their eyes wide, their hearts pounding, because they knew it was not the council speaking, it was humanity. On the capital world, the council chamber erupted into panic. Leaders shouted at technicians to cut the feed, to block the signal. But no one could. Every attempt failed. Every system bent under the weight of the broadcast. Some leaders screamed it was sorcery. Others swore it was technology beyond their understanding. But all felt the same fear, for the humans had spoken to them inside their strongest fortress. And then the broadcast changed. New words followed, sharper, heavier. "Your pleas will not erase your sins." A gasp swept through the chamber. Some leaders collapsed into their seats. Others clutched their heads in despair. The words spread faster than fire. Played again and again across devices no one could shut off, no one could silence. On frontier colonies, farmers dropped their tools and stared at the skies. Traders on distant routes whispered to each other. Soldiers in bunkers gripped their rifles with shaking hands. The message reached everyone. And it was clear now, the humans were not sending warnings, they were sending judgment. The council tried desperately to maintain order. They declared curfews, silenced protests, and sent soldiers to arrest anyone who repeated the human message. But the more they tried, the stronger the broadcast became. On some worlds, words burned across walls without screens, glowing letters that read, "We remember." On others, Voices whispered through static even when no devices were near. There was no escape, the humans could not be silenced. Reports began to surface of colonies where the broadcast did more than frighten. In one mining settlement, the moment the message played, lights died, machinery froze, and ships fell silent, and when power returned, entire fleets above them were gone. No explosions, no wreckage, only silence. The people whispered that the broadcast itself carried power, that the words were not just sounds, but weapons. In hidden corners, ordinary citizens began to turn against the council. They demanded answers, demanded truth. They shouted that the council had lied for centuries, buried the betrayal, erased the humans from history. But now the humans had returned, and no lie could save them. Riots shook the capital, torches and weapons filled the streets. Banners of surrender were raised by frightened governors, others swore defiance. The galaxy fractured into pieces. Meanwhile, across the void, more messages poured in, each more damning than the last. We gave you peace. You broke it, one broadcast said. We gave you time. You wasted it, said another. The words echoed like hammer strikes across every star. They were not arguments. They were verdicts, and no one could deny them. On one trading station, a merchant ship caught a glimpse of a warship drifting close, its black hull covered in scars from ancient battles, yet alive and strong. The crew froze as the ship passed, their screens lighting up with the broadcast, the human voice calm and steady. Your council cannot save you. Your weapons cannot save you, only truth remains. Then the ship drifted away, leaving the crew trembling, their story spreading faster than the council could censor. The galaxy's greatest minds tried to understand the signal. Scientists locked themselves in research halls. Engineers tore apart communication arrays. But none could explain how the humans spoke through systems not connected, how their voices reached worlds without devices. Some whispered that it was not technology at all, but something deeper, as if the humans had become part of the void itself, their voices carried on the breath of space. In the great hall of the council, the high speaker finally broke, his trembling hands lifted as he whispered words none wanted to hear. We cannot fight them, we cannot silence them, we can only answer. His voice was drowned by shouts of denial, but many in the chamber felt the truth settle in their bones. The humans had come not to argue, not to demand, but to deliver judgment. The climax came when the broadcast grew louder, drowning every sound, and for the first time, the words carried more than accusation. They carried a sentence. Your cries will not save you. Judgment begins. Across the galaxy, fear became despair, leaders cowered in palaces, soldiers deserted their posts, ordinary beings wept under the weight of the words. The peace of centuries was shattered completely, and above them all, in the silent black of the void, the warships of Earth drifted unseen, watching, waiting, letting their voices break the galaxy long before their weapons ever fired. Darkness fell across the galaxy not with fire, but with silence. First it was colonies on the edge that went quiet. Their beacons stopped blinking, their comm relays cut mid-sentence, their patrol ships never reporting back. Then larger worlds followed. Planets that had shined with trade and laughter now stood in uneasy stillness. People looked up at the stars and felt it, the weight of something vast pressing down on them, and then the shadows came. The first true sighting happened on the frontier world of Calvoris, its skies usually filled with merchant ships and freighters. But one night the stars disappeared, not dimmed, not hidden by storm clouds, but erased. The people poured into the streets staring upward, their voices filled with fear. A shape larger than their world drifted across the heavens, black and silent, its surface scarred and jagged yet alive with power. No lights marked it, no banners, no name, but every heart knew what it was: a human warship. Panic spread like fire, alarms blared, soldiers rushed to their defenses, fleets scrambled from hangars. But the warship did not fire, it simply hovered, blotting out the suns, watching. The colony governor sent desperate pleas into the void, begging for mercy, promising loyalty. But the only reply came through every screen, every device, every speaker, the voice steady and cold: we gave you peace. You betrayed it. We gave you time. You wasted it. Now we return. In orbit, alien fleets braced themselves, their captains swearing courage even as their hands shook, weapons primed, shields glowing. They charged toward the massive black hull, their missiles streaking like comets, their lasers burning across the sky. But the moment the fire touched the warship, it vanished. Their targeting systems went blind, their engines stalled. Their fleets drifted powerless into the void. One by one their ships winked out of existence. Not with explosions, not with fire, but swallowed, erased, silence replacing their screams. On the ground, the people watched in horror as the lights of their defending fleets vanished from the sky. Their champions gone in seconds, and still the human warship did not fire. It only drifted slowly, showing them that their strength meant nothing. Their armies dust before giants. The governor fell to his knees in his palace, his voice shaking as he cried into the comms, we surrender, please spare us." And for a moment the broadcast fell silent. But then it returned, "We are not here for surrender. We are here for judgment." News of Calvorus spread faster than the council could contain it. Traders carried stories of the black warship. Miners whispered of stars vanishing behind vast shadows. Refugees poured into safe worlds only to find the same silence waiting above them. The galaxy was no longer asking if humans had returned. Now they asked who would survive their judgment. On the council's capital world, chaos broke apart the chamber. Leaders screamed at one another. Some demanded unconditional surrender. Others swore they must strike now or die trying. Still others fell into silence, broken by despair. The High Speaker raised his trembling voice, saying the words no one wished to hear. "It is too late. They do not come for negotiation, they come to decide." But his warning was drowned by shouting. Meanwhile, more worlds fell. A desert colony reported its fleets erased in an instant. Its cities darkened as black ships hovered above. A frozen moon swore its skies cracked as enormous shadows slid through its atmosphere. On a gas world, miners claimed to see human warships moving through the storms, lightning bending around them. The stories were endless, each one heavier than the last. One scout vessel dared to approach a drifting warship, its captain driven by fear but desperate for proof. The crew crept close, their senses alive with static, their hearts pounding, and then they saw it. Through the viewing glass the hull stretched like an endless wall, scarred yet alive, and through narrow slits in its surface, figures moved, tall, armored, unmistakably human. The scout crew froze, their whispers trembling, they survived. But before they could flee, the warship turned its gaze upon them. Their systems died, their ship frozen in silence, their last message slipping out before their disappearance. A single sentence. "We saw them, they are here." When that recording reached the galaxy, no one denied it anymore. The council's lies meant nothing. The shadows were real. The humans had survived. And now they stood above the stars. The people wept, armies broke. Entire planets raised white flags to the skies. But others, too proud to bow, launched their fleets anyway, and every one of them vanished, their lights extinguished in moments. The humans did not need to fire to win. Their silence was stronger than war, their presence heavier than weapons, their words sharper than blades. They let the galaxy see. They let the galaxy tremble. They let fear do their work, and across the stars one truth settled into every soul. Earth had not died, Earth had returned, and Earth was judging them. In the black of space, the warships drifted, waiting, silent but alive. Their human crews standing within, eyes burning, watching the galaxy crumble. Their voices whispering into the void again and again. "We remember. You will answer." The galaxy no longer questioned whether humanity had survived. Their warships blotted out suns. Their shadows stretched across entire worlds. Their silence crushed fleets without a single shot fired. Everywhere, fear spread like a plague. But even fear left a question no one could answer. Why had they come? What did they want? Why did they wait? That answer came when the humans finally spoke in full. It began on the shattered colony of Valaris, a once proud mining world now dark and broken. Its fleets erased, its cities without power, its skies filled with the hovering shapes of human warships. The people cowered in shelters, praying it would end. Then the voice came, not through devices or comms, but through the air itself, deep and steady, shaking walls and hearts alike. "We are the children of Earth. You tried to erase us. You betrayed us." The words rolled across the valleys, filling every ear, every mind. The people screamed, some fell to their knees, others pressed their hands over their ears, but no one could escape the voice. "You begged for our strength in your wars. You demanded our blood when you were weak. And when the fires dimmed, when peace returned, you turned away. You voted to enslave us. And when we refused, you abandoned us to die." On the capital world, the council chamber fell into silence as the same words played across every wall. every console, every hidden frequency. The leaders trembled. Because they had always known the truth, they had buried it beneath centuries of lies. But the humans had torn away the mask, exposing their guilt before the entire galaxy. The High Speaker, his hands shaking, whispered to himself, "They know everything, they never forgot." His voice cracked with sorrow, but none dared answer him, for the truth was heavier than denial. Then the broadcast shifted again. Images filled the skies above countless worlds, not illusions, but memories, old battles replayed in fire and blood, human fleets standing alone against endless enemies, human soldiers dragging allies to safety while their own bodies bled, human cities burning while alien fleets turned away. The people of the galaxy watched in horror as their ancestors' betrayal unfolded before their eyes. The vote, the abandonment, the silence, everything humanity had suffered. Every sin committed, it was all there, raw and undeniable. Children wept, parents turned pale, soldiers gripped their weapons but did not fire. The truth was a blade cutting into every soul, and the humans twisted it deeper with their words. "We gave you centuries. We gave you peace. We gave you time to change. And still you forgot." On distant worlds, riots broke out. Some cried for mercy, demanding their leaders kneel. Others shouted in rage, swearing humanity had no right to judge. Civil wars sparked overnight. Systems split between fear and pride. But no one was safe, for the warships of Earth loomed above them all. The council gathered in chaos, voices cracking with desperation. Some demanded negotiation. Others screamed to launch every weapon left. But even as they argued, the screens around them glowed with human faces at last. Tall figures clad in armor black as the void, their eyes sharp, their faces scarred, their presence heavier than the warships they commanded. One stepped forward, his voice clear. "We are not here to conquer. We are not here to rule. We are here to judge." The chamber froze, the leaders unable to breathe. The human continued, his words slow and final. "Every race raised its hand against us. Every world turned its back. Every fleet abandoned us. You are all guilty." His eyes scanned them as if he could see straight through the screens, straight into their souls. "And now, you will answer." The broadcast echoed across the galaxy, repeated on every world, every ship, every home. It was not a demand for surrender, not an offer of peace, but a declaration of judgment. The people trembled, because there was no negotiation in the human voice, no mercy in his tone. On Valaris, a small child whispered to her mother, "Will they kill us?" And her mother, tears running down her face, could not answer. On the capital, a proud warlord slammed his fist on the table, screaming that they would never bow, and his fleets launched into the void. Within minutes his entire armada vanished. His last scream carried across the stars as a warning. Defiance brought only silence. But some worlds chose differently. Governors knelt in their palaces, begging for mercy, broadcasting their loyalty to Earth, raising banners of surrender in their skies. Those worlds were left intact, their people shaken but alive. The lessons spread quickly. Some would live, some would vanish, depending only on the choices they made. Still, the humans spoke once more, their final words sending a shiver through every living being. "We are not your conquerors. We are not your slaves. We are the memory you tried to erase. We are judgment, and judgment does not forget." The galaxy shook under the weight of those words. Billions fell to their knees. Billions shouted in rage. Billions wept in silence. But all understood, there was no escaping the truth. The humans had returned not for conquest, but for judgment, and the galaxy itself stood on trial.